Welcome to the show. This is The Force Always. My name is Diz, aka David Zammit. Let's get on with the show, with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. Making news this time around, I do have Shadow Lord Maul. I've said that the wrong way around, but it's Maul Shadow Lord review on episodes 7 and 8 a bit later in the show, in the review section. Hold on for that. But while I'm speaking of that, it's now available on Disney Plus. Episodes 7 and 8 is now on. Next week will be the last 2 episodes of this particular season, as season 2 has been announced for Maul Shadow Lord. So stay tuned for next week. And in fact, they drop on May the 4th. Be with you. So expect something interesting Star Wars wise following that particular broadcast somehow. Or something that appears somewhere in the universe or somewhere in this planet Earth. Anyway, to more news. The Mandalorian and Grogu are really scouring the internet at the moment with many behind-the-scenes footage. I think they're fascinating, especially the one with Jon Favreau's Mandalorian collection that he has in his own home. It's presented so well, and it's got some great, I would say, artifacts. So check them out. They're being dropped left, right, center. They're really pushing this film via YouTube with a whole lot of behind-the-scenes footage of the making of, speaking with actors, stuff like that. It's involved in Mandalorian and Grogu, and that is what's happening with that film. To more news, Star Wars Celebration tickets, again, as I've said, and you probably know, maybe, I don't know, next week they go on sale. For us here in Australia, more close to the point, Melbourne, Australia, pretty much the east coast of Australia, it will be the 7th of May. It'll be about 5 a.m. And technically, this tickets go on sale May the 6th, which is American time zone. So May the 6th in America, May 7th in Australia. It's the same time, just 2 different time zones. But they're going on sale next week for Star Wars Celebration 2027. It's going to be April, and that's next week. Looking forward to that. Making more news to do with combined couple of stories I've mentioned already. By the end of next week, Star Wars fans, especially the hardcore Star Wars fans, will be quite poor. Between The Mandalorian and Grogu and Star Wars Celebration, if you're into those, either or both or whatever it is, you're going to be a little bit poor by the end of next week. That's my pre-news to some news, because I think it's going to happen. And partly myself. Not massively, but just enough. To more news, Starfighter at the moment has no news. As I keep saying, no news is good news with Starfighter. I am really eager to sort of get to know a bit more about this film. I'm sure it's going to happen soon enough, but personally, with no news of anything at all, they're really keeping it concealed, which is great. That's at Disney/Lucasfilm, and also that there's no negativity coming out of this, and that's great. Anyway, so that's the news for this time around. Let's get into views. Views is my viewpoint and or story idea within stories of Star Wars that I have of my own. I accept the story for what it is, from start to finish, as I keep saying. But it's just a reminder that, to accept the story for what it is, no matter what genre really it is in the world. I'm just going to take a Midlothian pill with a bit of good morning goodness. Anyway, my story ideas and stuff like that. That's what views is about. Views this time around is something that is more of a viewpoint. Ever since The Last Jedi, Episode 8, which is really a turning point for a lot of Star Wars fans, partly myself, I like this story, The Last Jedi, But personally, I thought at that point where it started to fail was actually the name. When they announced the name, The Last Jedi, I just thought it sounded good, but they're using the same word in two movies of the 9 episode episodic saga, which is Jedi. Return of the Jedi, and now The Last Jedi. I just thought that was a bit of a rule breaking point. Not just a rule, like I'm not into it has to stick to a set of rules, but you would think to come up with something original would be, using an original Star Wars word, which is usually in the title of a Star Wars film that they would have done. And as original as that story was in groundbreaking points, my viewpoint really is centered about Luke Skywalker. A lot of fans really get disgusted with that particular film because of how they treated Luke Skywalker. I'm going to say this. From my understanding, just a viewpoint, not criticism, not praise, but I think the fact that Luke Skywalker actually died was, sort of heartbreaking to the inner self of people who love Star Wars and Luke Skywalker. I think personally, the ongoing saga with Star Wars fans that, they dealt with his death in a bad way. I think there was, a scientific reason within the story of Star Wars. That's science in Star Wars. I think it does make sense. I think what also makes sense is that it happened in episode 8. Imagine if episode 8 came out and then we knew that he was going to die in episode 9. It would be just like almost too predictable because he's human in Star Wars. He's an actual human. He will have to die soon enough. So I think it's a little bit of a traumatic syndrome that people are going through that Luke Skywalker died, which is fair enough. He's such a iconic hero within any movie universe, really. But I just think it's why the film gets a lot of discuss, as because of the way that Luke Skywalker died and the way that the fact that Luke Skywalker died at all. I think personally, I thought his death made sense. I think having it in 8 was a bit unexpected, but at the same time, it was, I think less predictable in the actual saga itself. When you're dealing with a trilogy, which was episode 7, episode 8, and episode 9. I think it was good. I also think the fact that he was a bit of a hermit, he gets criticism for that. He was such a hero. Why has he sort of gone down? Well, the story repeats itself in Star Wars. Lots of stories repeat itself. That's why I've got to like Star Wars, because it's a life learning experience. People's lives repeat from other people's lives the same way. We all have breakfast, we all have lunch, we all have dinner every day. Some may skip it, some may have more of it, some whatever. But, life is repetitive cycles. And the fact that we had Obi-Wan Kenobi, sort of turn into a hermit, pretty much, and then we had Luke Skywalker turn into a hermit. It's just a repetitive storyline. You just want an original take on it, obviously being a film and people not being so obvious in its copying or repeating cycle. But I think him being a hermit makes sense. I would have loved to seen Luke Skywalker come back in a heroic moment. Personally, I think an opportunity missed was in The Force Awakens, which was episode 7. The lightsaber was stuck in the snow towards the end of the film. Who got it was Rey, which I appreciate and I like that idea, but I would have gone crazy if it was Luke Skywalker. It would have just tore the house down, but it was not to be, and I think who picked up the lightsaber was valid and was good. So I think, the viewpoint really is that I think people need to find a way of understanding that Luke has passed. This is a fantasy character. He has passed away He's now as a Force ghost, and it is a traumatic thing to go through. But at the same time, the Last Jedi was just an original version of a Star Wars telling type of film. It may not be, the most highlighted one ever to be seen, but still it has greatness about it. And yes, it has badness about it. I accept the story for what it is. Anyway, that my viewpoint is that Luke Skywalker, he's passed away. We've just got to know to move forward, including myself. Anyway, so that is my views. Let's get now into reviews. Reviews this time around is about Maul Shadow Lord episodes 7 and 8. Straight off the bat, for the two episodes separately, I'm going to give you the same score separately for episodes 7 and episode 8. They both get 6.9 out of 10. It's a bit of a further drop from last week. I didn't quite enjoy these particular two episodes, as even they are slow paced in partial, as it's really just goes from one point to another with lightsaber action and a little bit of psychology. I thought episode 8 was going to be the reveal of, we have a major person coming into the equation, which I thought maybe we see any likeness of Vader in there. The only thing we did see was we sort of saw flashbacks of the Emperor, but it was not the actual Emperor. In reality, it was just a flashback sort of dream or sort of imaginary sequence. I thought episode 8 was a bit better than episode 7, even though they got the same score. It just was a bit more enjoyable. I thought the actual Inquisitor who arrived in episode 7 was much better in its look. We've seen before anyway, but I just love that look of that Inquisitor. It's so good. But the ship he or she, we don't know, arrived on was really good. I wouldn't say iconically good, but really good. But both episodes didn't leave you hanging for the next episode in a cliffhanger type of way. It doesn't have to be a massive cliffhanger. It'd be great if it was, but it doesn't have to be massive. It just has to be some reason to really watch, what was going to happen next. And all I can say now is that there's 2 more episodes to go, which is going to be next week on May the 4th. And if they're gonna reveal Vader and or the Emperor in these episodes, it's gonna have to be fairly quick. Probably at the start of episode 9, and then eventuating into episode 10. We may just see Vader pop in at the last moment for like a walk-in at the episode 10. That may very well happen before a lightsaber fight. But I think it really does need to have some sort of lightsaber action, even if it's partly cut off at a crucial point, to really be, to have our thoughts of what's going to happen for next season. That would be good. But let's get back into episode 7 and 8. I thought the psychology of Maul, especially in episode 8, we've sort of seen before, I think it was Rebels or Clone Wars, the clone animation series. We'd sort of seen him go through that sort of thing before, where he's sort of starting to cave in himself and just go a bit insane. It's obviously with him for the rest of his life, because that's quite a traumatic life that he'd led at that point. His mother had passed away, his brother had passed away, the Emperor had sold out on him, or technically Palpatine, and his life was in ruins. But I just thought episode 8 was more enjoyable. Episode 7 was good, along with episode 8. I just thought they just coasted. They're not a re-watchable type of episode, but it still was captivating enough for me to go, let's see what happens next week. But it didn't really grab me. that's, in my humble opinion, that's my review for Maul Shadow Lord episodes 7 and 8. Anyway, now let's get into interviews. Interviews this time around with no comments being made because, especially our firm favourite, I know he's attending to other things this week, so he's been unable to give you any questions. But speaking of which, you can send me questions at any time you like, deemed appropriate to the channel. Could be trivia, could be just an opinion, it could be a comment, but it's up to you. But what I'm going to do is interview myself with one question. What am I looking the most forward to at Star Wars Celebration in 2027? What I'm looking forward to the most at Star Wars Celebration 2027, probably any Star Wars Celebration, is the involvement with other fans. The social interaction is absolutely mind-blowing. It's just so good. If you can find a group of people who are willing to just, chat and talk and, sort of pass on experiences, and you'll be surprised. A lot of people who don't look like they're talkers will talk. And it's such a great social interaction. It's so good. I can't tell you. It's sort of like going through a whole, levels at school in 3 or 4 days, and being stuck with that group of people. It's like your schoolmates from back in the day, but in a small time convention event. That's and especially this one being the 50th anniversary, it's going to be absolutely insanely busy. I'm personally a little bit concerned about tickets being, possibly sold out really quickly. So I'm going to be finger on that trigger, really getting those tickets. But that's not guaranteed as yet. We'll find out next week. But yeah, the most thing I'm looking forward to at Star Wars Celebration is just the interactivity, with just the social life of Star Wars. It's like it's just so great. If you're not a Star Wars fan, or only a partial Star Wars fan, you may get really annoyed, or you may be converted. But it's just about Star Wars. I mean, there's things we talk about other than Star Wars, but I'd say 90% is Star Wars. And I'll tell you, there's so much to talk about Star Wars, whether it's a psychological aspect, whether it's just a basic story idea, where it's going, where it's came from, who's dressed in what, who's appearing here, what panel was next, what happened to the panel, what reveals happen. That is what I'm most looking forward to in Star Wars Celebration in LA 2027. Anyway, that is the show, for this time around. Subscribe to the channel, The Force Always. I'm here 3 or 4 times a week with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. Like and share if you want this particular episode. And until next week, my friends, keep rocking.